LSU opens SEC play. It's LSU against Missouri, and a big change for a big-time freshman. It's on today's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making this your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you so much for that. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. SEC baseball play. Finally, SEC baseball has come back to Baton Rouge. LSU against Missouri, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, out at Alec Box Stadium. As we preview the series, Jay Johnson met with reporters to preview the series and some notable changes coming for these Tigers as they push off from the dock in conference play. But let us begin, if we could, with a thought on these Missouri Tigers. When Jay Johnson met with reporters, here was his takeaway on the SEC opening weekend opponent.
It's very easy if you're not in the weeds to just label somebody as something, but things aren't always as they seem. Ian Loesch is a really good pitcher that we're facing tomorrow. I think he had a couple or two or three scoreless innings against us last year, has a good style that he pitches to. Tim Jamison, the pitching coach there, was the longtime head coach when you're talking about Scherzer and Aaron Crow and that really good run that Missouri had. I think they were in a super regional mid-2000 to 2010s, whatever you call that. Carrick's a good coach. Obviously, you guys all know that. They have a style of play, and it's going to be a good challenge. It's very easy if you're not in the weeds.
Jay Johnson saying all the right things about the opening opponent, Missouri. Here's the other part about Missouri that you may not necessarily hear from the coach who's trying to get his team ready to play a conference opponent. So Missouri has started off this season at 8-8. They're 500 overall, 8-8. When you look at who they've played so far, well, they lost to Penn State, they lost to Stetson, they lost to Central Florida, they lost 10-2 to Alabama State out of the SWAC. They also lost a game to Evansville, the Aces, for they played 4 and they split 4, so they went 2-2 against Evansville. They also lost a game 8-7 in 13 innings to Binghamton, and then lost 5-2 in 7 innings to Binghamton, splitting a 4-game series. It's not as if Missouri's faced a murderer's row, and yet they're still sitting there at 8-8. And when you dive into some of the numbers, it becomes pretty obvious why. Missouri is 11th in the SEC in team batting. Now, there's 16 teams, so 11 out of 16 puts you in the bottom half, but they do hit .301 as a team, and they got 17 homers in 16 games. So they can hit with some power, and they've got a couple of guys that actually can swing it pretty good. Caden Nicoletto is hitting .422 on the season. Mateo Cerna, who was there a year ago, is batting .328, leading the team in doubles, homers, and RBI. So you got a couple of guys there who can mash it. And the truth is, that kind of tells the story of this Missouri team. They can swing the bats. What they can't do is pitch it. Now, you heard Jay Johnson talk about Ian Loesch, who's the Friday night guy, who LSU did see a year ago. And he's part of this Missouri staff. Loesch is 0-2 with a 5.12 ERA. He does have 26 strikeouts in 19 1/3 innings pitched. Freshman Will Libbert goes in game 2. He's got a 5.40 ERA. And then junior Caden Drew goes in game 3. He's got a 3.43 ERA. He's actually 2-0 on the season. But what's notable about each of the guys I just mentioned, Ian Loesch, senior lefty. Will Libbert, freshman lefty. Caden Drew, junior lefty. You're going to face 3 left-handed pitchers this weekend against Missouri, starting pitchers anyway. Now, This is a team with a staff ERA of 6.20. That's dead last in the SEC. They're also dead last in the SEC in fielding percentage. So they're 11th in batting. They're dead last in pitching and fielding. If Missouri gives you a challenge, it's because you gave them opportunities offensively, because they can swing it. And if you give away at bats and you give them opportunities, you walk guys, you put them on base, you hit guys, you kick the ball around, you give that offense, which can swing it, an opportunity to get going, all of a sudden you could be in a couple of nail biters. The positive for LSU is Missouri can't really pitch it a lick, but you do face an interesting challenge again with 3 lefties that you're going to face. Now, every week I talk to Kendall Rogers from D1 Baseball on my radio show After Further Review. And if you don't know Kendall Rogers, who is the preeminent college baseball voice, he's D1 Baseball is the leading voice in college baseball, and Kendall owns the site. So I have a great opportunity to talk to a guy that's the most respected college baseball writer in the country. And I started to say to him, you should never expect a sweep because it's baseball. Look, I mean, LSU didn't sweep Omaha at the box earlier this season. This is still an SEC opponent. You heard Jay Johnson mention Carrick Jackson, the head coach at Missouri. Carrick Jackson spent 3 seasons as the head coach at Southern in Baton Rouge. Left Southern to go take a job with Major League Baseball, got back into coaching at Missouri there as the head coach now in his 2nd season. But as I was telling Kendall, I never really count on a sweep. He interrupted me and said, yeah, you should count on a sweep.
I think you should expect a sweep against Missouri. And here's why.
Okay.
Here's the thing that really concerns me for Missouri going to the box is, on the road, the box, first weekend of conference play, it's going to be electric. And the problem you run into with your Missouri, they're 11th in the SEC in offense. They're 14th, they're 16th in the SEC in fielding. They're 16th in the SEC in pitching. I'll say this. If you're 16th in the league, dead last, and you're 16th in the league, dead last in fielding and pitching, I don't like your chances of playing or winning anything at LSU, much or anywhere else for that matter.
Man, they ain't going to go 0-30.
They're not going to go 0-30, and I guarantee you Jay Johnson's probably like, man, I hope none of my players are listening to Kendall and Matt talk about how terrible Missouri is. But, I mean, really, Missouri, I will say this. LSU is going to have to play a brand of baseball they have not played for the most part this year. You could argue the first 7 or 8 innings against Omaha, offensively, it was probably not great baseball. But outside of that game, they would have to play probably their worst weekend to lose a game this weekend at home, and I just don't see it happening.
So Kendall likes LSU to sweep Missouri, and it would be an amazing opportunity for LSU to give themselves a cushion, a little bit of a buffer as they start SEC play. Remember, a year ago, LSU did the exact opposite. They dug themselves a huge hole in the first half of conference play, and they needed to dig themselves all the way out of that hole in the second half of conference play. This would be a great opportunity to start with a little bit of a leg up with the worst team in the league coming to the box to open conference play. We'll see if the Tigers can get it done. Now, one guy we're going to expect to see on the bump this weekend is William Schmidt, the freshman out of Catholic High in Baton Rouge. And Jay Johnson had a very interesting comment about Schmidt's role, not just moving forward this year, but for the rest of his LSU career. You'll hear that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. We are all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. And March Madness is here. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 $100 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Got your eyes on a few underdogs this year? FanDuel makes it easy to pick with spreads, totals, and game props. And with tournament games happening darn near every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. So LSU will take on Missouri this weekend, and I think it's a safe assumption that we are going to see true freshman William Schmidt pitch at some point this weekend for LSU against the Missouri Tigers. Now, Schmidt is off to a really, really strong start in his freshman season, and he's primarily been used as a midweek starter. Now, LSU's had some kind of unorthodox weeks where they played a Monday against Nichols. They've had back-to-back days of midweek games. So we've seen Schmidt in a variety of different roles. Of course, pitched the ninth inning against Missouri in that game in Frisco. But at this point, through his very, very young career, William Schmidt has made 5 appearances for the Tigers, and he's got a 1.35 ERA. He's 3-0, and in those 5 appearances, he's made 3 starts. 13 1/3 innings pitched. He's allowed 9 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, and struck out 16. I will take that strikeout to walk ratio every day of the week, twice on Sunday. 16 strikeouts to 3 walks, and the opponent batting average against is 188. He has been awesome. No other way to say it. But the competition ratchets up dramatically now that you're facing SEC play, or that you're facing SEC hitters. Jay Johnson has a weekly interview on Off the Bench on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge with Jacob Hester and T-Bob Hebert. And on Thursday morning, Jay had this to say, which felt maybe kind of tongue-in-cheek, but actually serious about William Schmidt and his future at LSU. Listen carefully.
We've hit it just right as far as what we wanted to get done for these 4 weeks without overextending him. Got him, basically a bullpen on Tuesday in that game. Yeah. Worked out perfectly, and he's lined up, ready to go for the weekend. So really excited about him. I love putting him in the game, and the reason I do is just he thrives on the competition. It looks like he's been doing it for a long time, and he also is pretty darn talented. So I'm excited about William, and I think his days of throwing on any Tuesday are probably over for the rest of his career here.
His days of throwing on any Tuesday are probably over for the rest of his career here. Jay Johnson effectively said a month into his freshman season, we're not using that guy in the midweek anymore. Now, I have a thought on that, but just for the record, after he did that interview on Off the Bench, Jay Johnson had media availability with reporters. Now, that quote got a lot of run. We had it up at LouisianaSports.net, and a lot of people saw it. And so Jay was asked about that when he met with reporters later in the day.
I think he's just one of our best guys. That's just all I really meant by that. And he's done great. And now we're at a point where we were able to do that. I don't want to say perfectly, but we did it in a way where he has a lot under his belt through 4 weeks of his college career in terms of his pitch counts high. He's been in a relief and a high leverage and a high charge environment, and just really like his makeup. So he's ready to add into the mix of this thing.
Now, what he was talking about, the leverage moment, was the Nebraska game. Remember, so LSU got down 5-0. They scored 10 unanswered in that game to charge back, and Schmidt pitched the 9th inning of that ball game in Frisco when it was a record crowd. And if I could give you a little bit of a tangential note here, it's why I like those. Financially, it doesn't make a lick of sense for LSU to go to Frisco and play as opposed to turning on the lights at the box and putting 10,000 people in a home game. It's also not good for the fans to have to pay for a stream to watch that game instead of having it on ESPN Plus or going to the game at the box. But that's why you like it, because there's no way to simulate that moment for William Schmidt anywhere except going on the road, having him be in a minor league ballpark in front of a record crowd in that ballpark against a Big Ten opponent with the ball in his hand in the 9th inning to go get the final 3 outs. And he aced the test. So what will be, I fully believe that Jay Johnson thinks they're not using William Schmidt in the midweek anymore, especially with the way Connor Ware has struggled the past couple of weeks. Ware probably will continue to iron things out in the midweek. William Schmidt has aced every test. So now the plan is wherever you need him in a weekend, you're going to use him. If you need him for long relief, he can do that. If you need him to pitch the ninth, he's shown you he can do that. If you need him as a setup guy for Case and Evans, he could be that for you as well. If you need him as a stopper, let's say hypothetically, you've got on Friday night, Cade Anderson, a lefty, and you want to follow with a righty with a big breaking ball, well, there's William Schmidt. If you need to go situational, you could use him really in any of those different instances this weekend or any weekend moving forward. But here's the cautionary tale. We saw the same thing a year ago with the aforementioned Cade Anderson. Cade Anderson was a lefty, the number one pitcher in the state of Louisiana coming into college last year in 2024. He was awesome as the midweek starter. Jay Johnson got to the point where he said, you know what? This kid is way more valuable to my team, giving me something in the weekend. And so they started trying to use him in the weekend in SEC games. And Cade Anderson's ERA against SEC hitters a year ago was close to 30. It's hovered in right around 27. So you're talking about a guy that was awesome in the pre-conference and just couldn't get SEC hitters out. So I'm not saying that's the same fate that's going to meet William Schmidt. We've seen a lot of pitchers who've come in as freshmen and developed into a really key role. Aaron Nola did that. He started as the midweek guy as a freshman. By the end of the season, he was your number 3 starter. I could say the same about Kevin Gausman back in 2011. They didn't want to throw him into the deep end, so another freshman, Kurt McCune, ended up being the Friday night guy that year. Gausman was back of the rotation, and by year 2, Gausman was your Friday night guy and ended up being the 6th pick of the draft. So it's good that you're not asking Schmidt to go be the Friday night guy or guy at the front of a rotation, but it's going to be interesting to see if he can consistently get SEC hitters out. That's the one thing we have not yet seen. Can he consistently find outs against SEC hitters? And we'll start to get that answer very likely this weekend when Schmidt takes the ball at some point. Now, the other thing I've been asked about endlessly is Gavin Guidry. Of course, Gavin Guidry in his 3rd season in Baton Rouge. We haven't seen him yet. Told you here, I understand it's a back injury. When Jay was asked about it, he said it wasn't an arm, said it was a lower body, and then clarified it's kind of middle body. I was told it's a back injury that Gavin Guidry has been dealing with. When Jay met with reporters on Thursday, he gave an update on Guidry. Remember, this was earlier in the day on Thursday.
How's Gavin doing? Yeah. Good. He's doing good. So we haven't had practice yet today. So as I said the other day, today's a important day, to see how he responds and recovers. We need him, obviously. Those relief pitchers that are a part of a lot of wins for our team, those guys are really important to me. Riley Cooper could do no wrong, in my eyes. Gavin Guidry can do no wrong in my eyes because they're so valuable at those tough spots. But trust me, there's nobody that's trying to get them out there more than I am.
It's one of those things that we often talk about. If you're an everydayer, thank you, you've heard me say it. It's about who you can trust in leverage spots. There's been a lot of the feedback I've gotten from some of you has been concern over the walks and some of the wildness out of the bullpen. And the thing I keep reminding you is you're going to pare it down. You're not using 15, 17 guys. When you get into SEC play, you're going to use 8 or 9 guys. You'll have your up 10, down 10 guys, but you know what roles you're going to carve out for guys. You're going to use Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson and Chase Shores and Connor Benj and Zach Cowan and William Schmidt and Case and Evans. You know who the guys are you're going to use to get you through an SEC weekend. When Gavin Guidry's back, he's going to be in that mix as well. So I am excited to see as roles evolve. But Jay's right about Gavin Guidry because you know who he is and what he can be. I mean, he took the ball and got the final outs in Omaha as a true freshman in the College World Series on a championship team. So I know what Gavin Guidry is. That doesn't mean he's flawless, but I never have any hesitation giving him the ball in a leverage spot. You can't say the same right now about some of the younger guys who are still finding their way. Guys like Newt and Cooper Williams and Maverick Rizzi and Grant Fontenot. Those guys are going to be great pitchers at LSU, but they're still finding their comfort level, their way, and what their roles will be. You know what Gavin Guidry's role is, which is why you want him back as soon as you can possibly get him. Now, there is one more role on this team that I think is yet to be decided. Jay Johnson was asked about that in detail on Thursday. We'll get into it next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, shopping online, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever because you can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals. You can stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Tigers are getting ready to take on Missouri to open up SEC play, and we pretty much well know the best player in every spot on this roster. We had a big question about catcher coming into the year, and it's safe to say that Luis Hernandez has stabilized that spot. It's not to say we won't see Cade Arambidi at all, but Hernandez is your best guy. Like, we know Bear Jones is going to slot in at first, and Daniel Dickinson's going to be your second baseman, and Stephen Milam's answered every question at short, and you got an electric outfield from left to right with Curiel, Stanfield, and Jake Brown. And we're going to see sometimes in right Ethan Fry and Josh Pearson, but those guys are very likely going to be your DH that rotates lefty-righty. We're going to see 3 left-handed pitchers this weekend from Missouri, so that very likely means a right-handed bat in Ethan Fry is going to get more of a heavy look this weekend, I would think, in that DH role or in right field. So something to keep an eye on with the right-handed pitcher. With the left-handed pitcher. You're probably going to look to get a few more right-handed bats in there where you can. But the one we don't know yet is third base. And it's so interesting because Tanner Reeves comes in from JUCO and is very likely the higher upside guy from Michael Braswell. A few more tools, probably a higher ceiling. But Braswell's the guy that's established. He's in his 4th year in the SEC after spending 2 years at South Carolina, now his 2nd year at LSU. A season ago, he was your starting shortstop. And I remind people all the time that Braswell was your leading hitter in conference play a year ago. Braswell hit .310 against SEC teams a year ago. In postseason play, Braswell hit .387. I don't question if Braswell can. I know he can. He has shown me, he's shown all of us, he can. He can play in the SEC. He can play on the left side of the infield. He can hit SEC pitching. We've seen him do it. Tanner Reeves, meanwhile, has kicked the ball around a little bit, struggled early, maybe the first couple of weeks. The last 2 weeks, he's really come on offensively. So how do you kind of manage that? And Jay Johnson started by talking about the defensive side of things with Tanner Reeves.
Yeah, come get the ball. I think you're so close to the play a lot. I think I'll never be upset with an infielder for being aggressive and coming and getting the ball. The other two things you have to do at third, because you're closer to the plays, you have to play wider and you have to play lower. And for a guy that played middle infield and outfield predominantly, that's a little bit of a new feel. I anticipate him continuing to get better as we go.
Tanner Reeves is up to .333 at the plate, while Michael Braswell's at .182. But look at Tuesday night. Braswell drew a walk on a full count, really good at bat. And then he also just absolutely murdered a ball to left center, just allowed 400-foot out, though, as the center fielder got a beat on it, made the play. So all that to say, I think Braswell has had some bad baseball fortune. And I know defensively he's really good. I know he can hit SEC pitching. I think, and my guess is, that we'll see Tanner Reeves get out there and get the first crack at it. He started the last 4 games. He's hitting .333. So that's probably who's going to get the first crack at it, would be Tanner Reeves. But boy, if he wobbles and slips at all, you feel very confident having a guy like Michael Braswell right there. It's maybe the biggest strength of this team is in its depth. Now, one more from Jay Johnson. It was asked kind of about balancing what to do there on the infield. Forgive me, I thought I had this one. Maybe, here it is. Yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't find the soundbite. Balancing third base, with Braswell and with with Tanner Reeves.
Yeah, it's just set the lineup to win that day, or set the game up. Maybe the lineup's not even the right word, but set the game up to win that day. And that will continue to happen, as we go forward here. And that's good, and that's okay. We've had a lot of successful games where they've kind of split the game. You'll see that, and you'll see one game where one guy probably goes the whole time and another guy goes the whole time, either the next game or the next appropriate game, for that. So it's not a straight line answer of certain type of pitcher or anything like that. We need both of them.
I believe he thinks that's the answer right now, and it may end up being true in time. But as we've seen typically as the season goes on, the cream rises and those answers end up revealing themselves. Look, a year ago at this point, Ashton Larson was a non-factor. And by the time you got into conference play, Larson would get pinch hit ABs, he'd keep delivering, and by the end of the season, he was in the lineup every day because he had to be. I would assume something similar is going to happen at third base with these two guys. It's not to say you may not have a defensive arrangement where, let's say, if Reeves is the starter, you get a lead, you put Braswell in at third as a defensive replacement. We saw that a lot a year ago at catcher with Hayden Travinski and Alex Milazzo. A lot of times, Travinski might get the start, and if LSU had a lead, they'd put Milazzo in as a defensive replacement in the final 3 innings or however it may go. So something to file away that they may very well do at third base with these two guys, unless and until one of them really grabs a hold of that starting job and locks it down. My preference is Braswell, just because I know he's a proven commodity. But I do think that, and again, that's subject to change, but I do think this is one of the real complex things Jay Johnson's going to have to manage this season. It's the understanding that you have a catch-22, and having great depth, you have tons of options. But in having great depth with a bunch of guys capable, you also feel the pressure to play a lot of guys. And that can be a challenge, finding ways to get all these different guys at bats when you're really trying to build continuity on this team, in this lineup, and in this roster. So Tigers have a great opportunity this weekend with Missouri coming in. This is the worst team in the SEC you're facing. You get them at home and you get an opportunity to give yourself a little bit of a head start. They need to go take advantage of it. 3-game series. Remember, game 1 has been moved up to 4:30 p.m. Central on Friday because of impending bad weather Friday night, Saturday morning in Baton Rouge. But Saturday afternoon, evening, the weather should clear. So the night game Saturday and then Sunday's game are expected to be unaffected by the weather. So hopefully the Tigers get all 3 games in without a hitch. And here's hoping the LSU Tigers, the good guys, the purple and gold Tigers, can maybe snag a 3-game sweep to start conference play here against Missouri and head off on their way on a 30-game SEC schedule, hopefully leading postseason through the box all the way to Omaha. And we will be here every step of the way. I want to remind you, thank you so much for being here with us. I want to remind you, we will go live after each game. So as soon as LSU and Missouri on Friday goes final, make sure you jump on Locked On LSU YouTube channel because we'll be live. Hey, if you are watching on YouTube, thanks so much. If you're listening on podcast, I appreciate you as well. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you're notified when we post a new video or we go live so you can join us for immediate post-game reactions, and let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.